expression of bribery, cleverly disguised as extra credit, right?
Correct.
So what I'm going to be sharing, or what my two gentlemen guests are going to be sharing with you over the next few minutes, are some of the things that each one of them shared with me during the interview. So, Frank, you want to pick a couple of those to share?
Yeah, I like to share what I started doing a long time ago, and that's because in my real life, I was a public defender representing individuals that were indigent charged with criminal offenses. And one of the biggest complaints that I got as a chief assistant is that my lawyers, their clients complained to me is I can't get a hold of this gentleman, this lady. And I got that. I got that. And I took that out of the equation for my clients. I took it out of the equation. I gave my clients my phone number, my cell number. And I started practicing in 1988 1983, excuse me, when we didn't have these things. We had only landlines. And I would give my clients the landlines. Now, my wife didn't like that. She says, how can you give murderers, rapists, robbers our phone numbers? I said, honey, come on. They're only alleged to be murderers, rapists. And if I do my job, they won't be. Didn't help, but I did it. And so I always had great attorney client contact. And when I became an adjunct instructor in 1994, my chair said, Frank, the biggest problems I have with adjuncts is students can't get a hold of them because we don't have offices. I took that out of the equation. I said, Dr. Massey, that won't be a problem with me because I'm going to give my students my phone numbers. And today, even today, if you go to my syllabus, right underneath my name is my cell number. My colleagues think I'm crazy. How can you do that? Because if I could give it to my clients, I can give it to my students. I teach online, and my students need to be able to reach me on the weekend, after hours, because they're working. And so I provide that for them. So that's my first thing that I get. Now, I've got to tell you this. It's never been abused by my clients or my students. I had one call at 3 a.m. and the student later on called me and said, hey, I apologize. I butt called you. I go, no problem. I was asleep. I only saw it the next morning. It really takes the communication aspect. Students won't call you anyway. They'll email you, they'll text you, like my family. My family would rather communicate with me by email or text. They don't want to talk to me. Neither do my students. And so they'll call you and they'll text me, and I return their texts. I return their calls or emails. That's very important. The second thing I do to make sure that I am engaged with them is I communicate with them every Monday. Every Monday, I sent out an announcement, and there it is. This is what we're doing this week. I'll go before an exam or something is due. I'll send them a message. Hey, this is due. Why do you do that, deletory? What, you're babying them? No, it's because, as Ricky will tell you, 95% of our students here at FAU work a full-time job and take a full load. They need a little extra reminder. And most importantly, guys, I've had 2 college students. Believe me, they need reminders, talking from a dad. So I will do that. One thing that I do is when my students are struggling, I'll go onto what's called the Success Network, and I will issue an alert and say, hey, listen, I'm concerned about you. This is what's happening. Reach out to me. I want to help you. Because remember, if you succeed, I succeed. And we call this concern letters. And I learned that from my good friend and colleague, Professor Langlois, who's below the lead. He taught me this. You write them a note, a letter. I'm concerned. That's how you started with. What can I do to help you succeed? What are you doing whatever you're doing, it didn't work on this exam. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result, right? So let's change. Let's do something different. And I just got kicked. I'm talking too much. So I'm gonna yield the floor.
It did not. But I will acknowledge that this is from two separate interviews I did with these two gentlemen. And both of them referenced quite a few of the things in here. You're going to hear from Ricky in just a moment. But that I'm concerned message came from both of them. And before I move on to the other one, I'm going to say, Amy, thank you for your definition of extra credit. Inspirational point recovery. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes, so you will see that on this one, there are some things that Frank pointed out to us that were important as far as keeping his students aware of what's going on. And you'll notice that I put the mark out under office hours. Frank said that he tried it, it didn't work, which is why the phone number is there, and he knows the students know it, then he'll reach back to them when they reach out.
Yeah, the office hours is very interesting. I had the traditional office hours, and what occurred is I just sat there by myself, and nobody came. And then when I started teaching online, I had a Zoom opened up for office hours, and again, nothing happened. So what do? I reach out to the students and say, hey, if you need to speak to me, come talk to me. Give me 3 days and times that are good for you. I'll pick one and we'll have a Zoom meeting. I have 2 of those tomorrow afternoon to speak and go over student exams because I think it's important for them to do that. So that did not work for me. That's the way I do it. That's much more helpful for me and the student. We have a set appointment and we meet and go over the students' questions.
Thank you, thank you. So let's see, Ricky, what are some of the things from yours? And on Ricky's, the way I set it up for it is where he made comments about things that he wanted to emphasize. And I've got his comments over on the left-hand side, and then the focus on the right-hand side of what that comment was addressing. So Ricky, what are a couple of things you wanted to point out?
Well, first of all, I just echo what Frank said. I think that communication, they need to know you're there. And they need to not just know it, they need to believe it. And so responding to them in a timely manner is very critical. But also, you're going to, when you think about what you're getting from students sometimes in those messages is, I need to talk to you. I missed an exam or I missed a DQ. I'm not doing as well as I think I should be. Can you help me? Do you have any pointers, any ideas? And that starts me sort of on that journey. And when I did my interview with you in the Faculty Lounge Live, it was really, we sort of centered it on what we called new analytics. And I'm always thinking about data. What can I do? Once I've done my class has been QM'd, I've met all those great standards through the QM process. I think I've got the best class ever because it's been designed, and it's more than that. Once your students get involved and they get in there and they're taking classes, and my classes are, of course, let me preface it by saying it's a mixture of discussion questions, short essay, and then usually some exams, and then usually finished up with a course level essay, which is much longer. And so I divide them up into groups, and it's a challenging course that I teach. One of them is criminology. It's very challenging. It's a core course. And the idea is, where are they learning the best and where are they struggling the most? And how do I know that? Well, I go into new analytics. I can take a peek at the data. I can see the overall class average. I can see the individual grades. I can compare I can see participation rates, which would equate to views. How many views on a particular page? What are they studying? These are the things that get me thinking. And at the same time, I can do what Frank talked about and then send a message to them and say, perhaps we should set a time up to talk. I noticed that you didn't do probably as well as you thought you should do on that exam or that discussion question. And then I can begin a dialogue with them. And in that new analytics, there's so many things that does for the students, not just the smart messages I can specifically send to them, but also I'm detecting course trends. And so I know, for instance, just recently on an exam with a student, I said, I noticed by viewing your trends and how often you spend in the classroom, I'm going to make some suggestions to you. And I bet that you'll do better on the next exam. And of course, the student did better on exam 2. And then I sent a message back. I keep notes because I want to follow up and make sure that I tell them, look, this is where you need to be. You're spending the quality time where you need to spend it. You're doing exactly you're where you should be. And you've got a great formula. But again, it's, and Frank and I laugh about this, but that's the way I start my message is, look, I'm concerned. I've gone in and I've looked at some analytics overall, how you're doing in the course, and I've noticed that you have very little participation leading up to the exam. And that has probably created a problem for you. And so really the idea is to use the data to your advantage. Let me give you a good example. Now, this doesn't speak volumes for me, but it's true, and every professor has this happen. I give an exam, and I go in and I do the quiz statistics, exam statistics, right? And this just happened. It's horrible, and you would think I could do a better job as long as I've been doing this. But when, say, 60% of the class misses a question on your exam, and it happens with, say, 2 or 3 questions, you've got to be asking yourself, did you cover this? Did you sufficiently cover this? Because if you did, they shouldn't be missing this at this large a percentage. That's a lot of people to miss that question. So then you start looking at the question, and you may notice, and in fact, this is what happened to me recently. It's not a good question. And I had to look at it and of course take it out, redo it. But I gave everybody credit for it. But you're never going to see that question again. Now, this happens semester after semester because you change your exams up. But I didn't really know in advance that I had created a question that was going to create that much doubt or that much confusion in the minds of my students. That's not why they're there. They should not have to go above and beyond to seek or know the answer to that particular question. So there's a lot that's involved for me when I teach. And the way I learn, a lot of what I learn is through that course analytics and being able to look at those trends and those patterns.
Absolutely. And everybody that I know of honors the faculty member who is willing to look at their own concerns and issues and go in and fix it and acknowledge to the students. I mean, you gave that point back to them. That
I did.
speaks volumes to those kids. That speaks volumes.
I do want to mention something, and this isn't meant to be braggadocious, but it just happened to me this last semester. And it also, if you don't mind me saying, it happened to my good friend and colleague, Dr. De La Torre here. The dean of our college wrote us a couple of nice letters and essentially was saying, I've looked over your DFW rates and they are superior to the university and college mean. And for that, and then of course she gave us a lot of accolades. And so I spoke later with the assistant dean, and he talked to me about it. He said, I really would like to sit down and talk to you and Frank about why is it that out of the entire college here, that you guys have DFW rates that far excel, way above the average. And that's the words he used, not mine. I think that's important. If you're doing everything you possibly can in the form of communication and engagement and the quality of the course, you're actually beginning with a winning formula. And then from there, it's just a matter of, and everybody probably knows this, it's a lot of tweaking. You got to go in and make some adjustments. And you can't be so proud of this great class you've created that it's flawless, because it's not. And
Yep.
you have to constantly get in there and just redo things based on the class trends and patterns, etc. So
Yeah. And so it's a mark of an exceptional instructor to be willing to look at themselves as well as their students' issues. Thank you. Thank you for that.
yes, it's tough, but it's true.
Yep, absolutely. It can be a hard lesson to learn, but a lesson
Mhm.
well learned. A lesson well learned. So now I'm going to give our guests the opportunity to go into Padlet. And I have 3 questions there, and I'm going to make sure that I can get to it to share the Padlet with you. There it is, and there are the 3 questions for you. So if you would please jot down your response, and to do that, you need to click the red circle at the bottom right. First question is, how do your students interact with the course content? How do students interact with the course content? Second one is, how do the students interact with each other? And then the third one is, how do the students interact with the instructor? So if you would please jot down your responses to those 3 questions.
Judy, can you put the link again, maybe show it or put it in the chat? I don't think everyone got it yet.
Yes, whoops,
Thanks.
I backed up here.
Yeah, we can't click on it in the slide presentation, so maybe if you put it on the chat.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Great.
I keep going the wrong direction. What that last part of it is. O-S-P-J. Z-E-M. That's okay. Well, I don't have to create those things. Okay, so there's the link in the chat for the Padlet.
Perfect.
And thank you, Susan, for letting me
No
know that.
problem.
And I think think in the interest of time, I will also invite you to either put your responses in the chat or open your mic and respond, answer to them. How do they interact with the content? How do they interact with each other? And how do they interact with the instructors? So you can put it in the chat, or you can also just, they can open their mics, right, Susan?
Yes, they can. And
Okay.
we got a couple comments for each question on the Padlet.
Good. Okay, so let me go in and open it up on my end. Interacting with the content through the modules, self-selection, peer shared reflection analysis. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. With all of the various content that they find in the modules, interacting with each other. And in an online environment, that is extremely important because they do that interaction in the face-to-face class. Just, it's a natural thing. So we want to make sure they have that opportunity through emails, through discussion prompts. And
Yeah, peer reviewing is really, that's a very good selection as well. I found that to be a
yes,
very powerful tool.
absolutely. And we include, when we create a course, we also include that student introduction. And that is a key component because it gives them the opportunity to connect with each other. It also gives us the opportunity to connect with each other, especially when we have 280 students that we need to keep up with.
Yeah.
So the peer reviewing, shared discussions, and then interacting with the instructor through email, through the discussion prompts in your virtual office hours, or reaching out to your instructor, whichever is works best, and then feedback, assignment feedback. Furry TAs. I have one of
Oh.
those. Introduce them to my 2 cats and grandpup at the start of the term, and then do critter check-ins. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. My
Personalize it, yeah.
my little furry one interacts with my students as well. That's a great one. Thank you so much for sharing that. Great ideas. Thank you so much. All right, let me see if I can get us back. All right, now let me, there. Okay. So what is your preferred manner of encouraging engagement for them? And this one, I'm going to say either put it in the chat or open your mic and speak up with us. What are your personal gemstones? Since we're talking about gemstones in TOPkit this week, what are your personal gemstones for making sure that your students can stay engaged? Excuse me. Thoughts and ideas. These were some that found on a visit in New Mexico, so that might give you a hint as to what those particular ones are.
That looks like pieces of pottery.
Yes, it is. It is.
Wow. Nice.
Okay, humor, absolutely, and helping them recognize that, yes, we are indeed real people, and that's coming up to just where I'm headed next. And I and my critter crew are vested in their success. Yes, as long as they know that you care that's gonna be a huge piece of it. Thank you for that, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
I
Love
also think that maybe tapping into their experiences and knowing who they are, making that apply
Yes.
to the content, helps kind of break the ice, getting to know your students
Mhm.
and also helping them in terms where they want to go.
And once they know that you are paying attention to what they have posted and to their thoughts and ideas on things, that's gonna be a strong component for helping in that. So that personal touch takes me right to the next item that I have. The had the opportunity to interact with Michelle Pacansky Brock at probably at one of these conferences about 3 or 4 years ago. And since then, I have used information from her website a great deal because her focus at that time, and probably still is humanizing the online class, making
Mhm.
sure that the students know that we are there for them, no matter what that takes. That we, according to this quote from her site, and I've got the link there to the rest of that infographic because there's a lot of excellent information in there, that we serve as that relationship between the instructor and the student is the connective tissue. That's what keeps them actively involved. If they know that you're there and that you are caring about that. So ask them what they're studying and help them relate their history courses to their career and personal development. Amy, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that you see that they're that what they want, where they are headed with that. I connect my connect my named person to the content that they are learning. My Darty details versus instructor comments. I love that. That's great.
I think one of the important things about humanizing students, especially in an online environment, is learning their names.
Mhm.
It's so important to use their names to realize, hey, he knows my name. And I'm not just a number to him.
Yeah.
And I think just as I was an instructor waiting for a class to begin, and the dean walked by, and I was just an adjunct instructor, and the dean turned to me and go, "Hey, Frank, how are you?" I go, "What? How does he know my name?" And that made me feel good. And what I learned from that is learn my students' names.
Yep.
And I think when Ricky and I take these classes to try to become better instructors through ACU and whatever, studies show, their names, they actually do better. So I make it a point anytime
Yeah.
I write them a note, I start using their first name. And my face-to-face classes, I'll do whatever I can to learn those 69 names. And I inevitably fail miserably. But the students like it. They laugh. Hey, this guy's human.
Yeah.
He's old and his memory's going. And they're right. But yeah, so using their names, I think is a way to humanize them. I think by doing that, it shows you care about them. And they do better when you know their name.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just that's just the comment that Amy put in. Even just dropping that into some of the feedback and the grading and whatever, but they recognize that you have gone to the trouble to realize who they are and what they are accomplishing in your class makes a world of difference.
That is such a powerful statement that was made there. I've got a grading rubric I'm using to grade, and I have the ability to send a message, but I also can send a short video. and I'll jump on a short video, keep it short, and I'll call them by name and say, listen, you did a fantastic job on this discussion question, and I just want to commend you. And you just talk to them in maybe a minute and 20, 30-second video, and you accompany that. And you don't have to do it all the time, but just take the time every now and then to encourage someone. You'd be surprised what that does for them. It's like, wow, they're responding with a video. Frank and I do a lot of that with the videos.
Yeah,
And so it works. It
Yeah,
works. I've gotten a
does.
lot of feedback on it. It works. That's a fantastic comment.
yeah, thank you. And shared themes, the mobmuseum.org nickname generator. I love that. An online icebreaker speakeasy discussion in which everyone had to share their mobster name and then talk about what they wanted to learn most in the term. What a great opening. You have in a course that most people would not necessarily think of as being a really dynamic and engaging course, you get them off to an absolutely phenomenal start with that. That's great. With starting out that way, what else is going to be happening through the rest of the semester? Beautiful. Thank you. And I have another
I love it.
Slido here. And my question on this one is, what sort of components for humanizing do you include? We've had several in here from our history course, an icebreaker speakeasy discussion. I love it. What does it take to create that humanizing impact in your courses? And again, this can be a post on the Slido, or it can be a post in the chat, or open up your mic and chat with us. That would be super too. And to join in the Slido, you can either use the web link, slido.com, with those numbers, or the QR code. Or feel free to chat. I want to invite you all to, after this, to go to visit the Michelle Pacansky Brock's site. So I choose something connected to their course content. Anything can be anything through any course, and as most of these things that we've talked about will work no matter what your course content is. You can adapt it and make it work. Yeah, history is part of every learning topic. I love it. If you could have a physics superpower, what would it be? Oh my gosh, what a great question for them. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. So my takeaway, as a result of interacting with these gentlemen and having had these connections with them and chatting with them about various aspects of their courses, and these are some pretty intense courses. Ricky said criminology. The gentleman sitting next to me teaches death penalty. We've got some pretty intense courses, and yet it still is information that I have thoroughly enjoyed sharing with each one of them, because when they know that they have an instructor who cares about them, they are going to work that much harder to be successful in their course.
And you have about 5 minutes with that, Judy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I was watching that.
Okay, good for you.
This is really my wrap up one. So I am going to open it up to any comments that any of you all would like to make. I have thoroughly enjoyed your comments in the chat because it really has been, it lets me know that you have been engaged in this as well, and that's a good thing, right? So either of you gentlemen wish to make any comments about how your students know that you care?
Yeah, this is something I learned from a class, and I started it. I find it successful. Maybe you can try it in your class. How many of us have read our evaluations at the end of the semester and saying, wow, this was really a good suggestion. Why didn't I do this? Well, it's too late. Semester's over. We get those at the end of the semester, right? So what I started doing, I didn't make this up. I don't think I made anything up in my life. I just steal stuff. And what I learned from this course was, hey, do a midterm evaluation.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I do that now. And I get great responses because I bribe them. I mean, I give them extra credit if they respond to the midterm check-in, as I like to call it. But when you get the information, that's just the first part. You got to let them know that you're going to change something. So I like to say, what do you like in the course?
Yeah.
What don't you like? And what would you like change? And so I try to accommodate them if I can to change what I was doing to make the course better for the remaining half. I try it. I think it'll be worthwhile. But remember, if you do it, make sure that you take their comments seriously and consider change. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. You may not, but if they come up with a good idea, try it.
Yep. And Susan has given you your treasure hunt code for this session. Meaningful success. And on that note, I am going to say thank you so much for joining this session and for being so willing to share with us and for being the caring instructor that I know each one of you is.
Thank you very much. All the presenters here were so grateful to have your insight. And I believe there is a 5-minute break until the next session. So take a little short breather and come back for our 3 o'clock sessions. Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
Susan, for guiding
you.
us.